Beyond the Chronos Gate, where past, present, and future collide. Part 1. A Shoeshine's Timeless Tales creation. Any similarity between real-life people or situations is absurd.
Chapter 1. Echoes of Steam and Shadow. The air in the workshop hung heavy with the acrid tang of solder and the oily musk of forgotten gears. Elias, his eyes bloodshot and beard a tangled mess, hunched over his workbench, a symphony of whirring cogs and sparking wires playing out beneath his trembling fingers. His latest creation, a monstrous contraption of brass and scavenged clockwork, pulsed with an ominous glow, casting grotesque shadows on the cluttered walls. He wasn't supposed to touch it. Grandfather's final warning resonated like a death knell in his mind, whispers of a future shrouded in darkness, where technology, once a beacon of hope, had become a twisted cage. Yet desperation gnawed at his soul, a monstrous echo of the family's tarnished legacy. His inventions, lauded but ultimately failures, haunted him like shadows. This contraption, cobbled together from stolen scraps and stolen blueprints, was his final gamble. With a ragged breath, Elias flipped the switch. The machine roared to life, gears grinding like teeth on bone, wires spitting sparks like fireflies in the gloom. The very room vibrated with the thrumming of forbidden power, the air crackling with energy. Hair standing on end, Elias closed his eyes, bracing for the impossible. The world twisted around him, a kaleidoscope of swirling colors and distorted sounds. Time itself seemed to unravel, the present bleeding into the past and the future. Then silence. He opened his eyes to a world bathed in the warm glow of gaslight, the clang of carriage wheels and the shouts of street vendors filling his ears. Cobblestones met leather boots, the scent of coal smoke and roasting chestnuts assaulting his senses. It was Victorian London, just as his grandfather's cryptic drawings had depicted. But this wasn't just any Victorian London. A tremor of disquiet ran down his spine, a dissonance in the air. The gaslights pulsed with an unnatural intensity, casting an eerie orange glow on the bustling streets. Shadows danced in the alleyways, deeper and darker than they should be. A palpable tension hung in the air, a whisper of impending darkness. He was here, in the past, yet the echo of his future nightmares resonated in the cobblestone streets, a chilling premonition of the path not taken. A gaunt figure cloaked in rags slunk past, muttering about cogs and gears, eyes burning with a feverish fervor. Elias felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Was this a glimpse of the future he sought to change, or a premonition of the danger that lurked in the shadows? His breath hitched as a familiar storefront caught his eye. Thorne and Sons, inventors extraordinaire. His family's legacy etched in gold above the dusty window display. His grandfather, Bartholomew Thorne, a visionary and a tyrant, stood at the window, his silhouette sharp against the gaslight. His cold, calculating eyes seemed to pierce through the glass, sending a jolt of apprehension through Elias. He had come to rewrite history, to prevent the darkness from taking root. But as he stepped into the cobblestone streets, a new question gnawed at him. Was he merely a witness to the past, or could he truly change the course of time? And just how far would he have to go to rewrite his family's legacy and rewrite the future itself? Chapter 2. Steam and Steel Symphony. The cobblestones sang under Elias's boots, a rhythmic counterpoint to the symphony of steam and steel that pulsed around him. London in 1851 was a city both familiar and alien, its gaslight-drenched streets buzzing with a frantic energy that mirrored the whirring gears within his own mind. He'd landed in the heart of the Industrial Revolution, a world where ingenuity and invention were king, the very air crackling with the promise of progress. His eyes, still adjusting to the dim light, landed on Thorne and Sons, his family's legacy etched in gold above the dusty window display. A pang of anticipation, laced with unease, tightened in his chest. He'd come to rewrite history, to stop the darkness from taking root. And yet, stepping through that threshold felt like stepping into the lion's den. The door creaked open, announcing his arrival with a groan that echoed through the cavernous workshop. He found Bartholomew Thorne, every bit as formidable as his grandfather's portraits had depicted. A mountain of a man, his beard a white waterfall cascading down his chest, his eyes like chips of ice in a furnace, gleaming with both curiosity and calculation. "Elias Thorne!" Bartholomew boomed, his voice like thunder rolling through a valley. "Welcome to the future!" Elias straightened, his pulse a hummingbird trapped in his ribs. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne. It's an honor to be here." Bartholomew chuckled, a deep rumble that shook the shelves lining the walls. "Honor? You make me sound like a museum exhibit boy. Come, let's see what you're made of." He ushered Elias through the labyrinthine workshop, a treasure trove of gears and cogs, bubbling vats of molten metal and sketches of fantastical contraptions that danced on the fringes of possibility. Elias's heart pounded against his ribs, his inventor's blood singing in response to the symphony of innovation around him. Bartholomew led him to a corner shrouded in shadow, where a lone figure hunched over a workbench, illuminated by a single flickering gaslight. The man's face, etched with lines that spoke of late nights and relentless ambition, was a mirror image of Elias's own, younger yet haunted by the same shadows of failure and doubt. "Jasper," Bartholomew said, his voice softer now, "meet your future." The figure looked up, and for a moment Elias felt like he'd stumbled into a hall of mirrors. The same unruly dark hair, the same fiery glint in hazel eyes, the same restless spark of a man who dreamt in gears and revolutions. This was Jasper Finch, Bartholomew's rival, a ghost from the past rumored to be as brilliant as he was enigmatic, a whisper of a path not taken. A slow smile spread across Jasper's face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Elias Thorne, huh?" he drawled, his voice a smoky whisper. "Heard a lot about you, and your little time travel escapade." Elias felt the blood drain from his face. He'd come prepared to face Bartholomew, the titan of industry, but this unexpected twist threw him off balance. Had Jasper discovered his secret? Was his mission already compromised? The air crackled with unspoken questions, the symphony of steam and steel seeming to hold its breath. This was not the easy rewrite he'd envisioned. In the heart of the Industrial Revolution, surrounded by echoes of the past and whispers of the future, Elias found himself facing not just his own demons, but a web of secrets and rivalries that threatened to unravel the very fabric of time. Chapter 3. Gears of Ambition. The steam workshop throbbed with a mechanical symphony, every clang and hiss a note in the grand opera of invention. Elias stood mesmerized, watching Bartholomew Thorne orchestrate the symphony with the practiced ease of a maestro. Sparks flew from whirring gears, molten metal pulsed in the furnace's belly, and the air hummed with the latent energy of 1,000 innovations waiting to be born. Bartholomew, a titan of industry with a beard like spun steel and eyes that gleamed like polished gears, surveyed his domain with a proprietary air. He explained the intricacies of his latest marvel, a steam-powered carriage that promised to revolutionize transportation, to shrink the world with its iron hooves. Elias, his inventor's blood singing in response, listened with rapt attention. He saw not just a machine, but a potential future hurtling towards him on a wave of progress. Yet amidst the awe, a discordant note resonated within him. Bartholomew's ambition, though undeniable, was laced with a chilling ruthlessness. He spoke of crushing rivals, of bending economies to his will, of progress paved with the blood of those who dared to stand in his way. This ruthlessness was embodied in Silas Finch, Bartholomew's formidable right hand. A man carved from granite and shadows, his eyes held the glint of a blade perpetually poised to strike. Elias felt Silas's gaze upon him, a silent challenge, a warning not to stray from the path Bartholomew had laid. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the corner of his eye caught Elias's attention. A figure, shrouded in the workshop's dim recesses, watched them with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. It was a woman, young yet bearing the weight of ages in her eyes, her face obscured by the shadows. Her gaze lingered on Elias, a mix of curiosity and suspicion dancing in its depths. Elias Thorne, a descendant from the future, had infiltrated the past, her mission shrouded in secrecy. She had come to observe Elias, to assess his worthiness, to ensure the future she knew was not rewritten. But as she watched him, a conflict brewed within her. She saw the fire of genius in his eyes, the passion that mirrored her own, but she also saw the shadows of doubt and the whispers of compromise that threatened to consume him. The symphony of the workshop reached a crescendo as Bartholomew unveiled his masterpiece, the steam carriage gleaming like a mechanical dragon in the firelight. Elias felt a surge of excitement, a yearning to be a part of this revolution, to leave his mark on the world. But Alara's watchful eyes held him back, a silent reminder of the price progress could exact, a chilling glimpse of the future he might be forging. As the gears of ambition turned and shadows danced in the corners, Elias found himself caught in a web of secrets and rivalries. The past and future intertwined, destinies hung in the balance, and the question echoed in the air. Would progress be the world's salvation or its damnation? Chapter 4. Shadows in the Workshop. The gears of the workshop hummed a discordant melody as I stood mesmerized by Bartholomew's latest creation, a steam-powered carriage that promised to devour miles and redefine transportation. Yet Ilara's watchful gaze from the shadows, a silent dissonance in the symphony of progress, kept my mind from fully succumbing to the allure of invention. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the smoky recesses, his laughter a jarring counterpoint to the workshop's mechanical rhythm. Jasper Finch, a man woven from contradictions, inventor, rogue, and Bartholomew's most formidable rival, surveyed the scene with an amused glint in his hazel eyes. His dark hair, as unruly as his methods, seemed to defy gravity, mirroring the defiance simmering within him. "Ah, Bartholomew," he drawled, his voice a smooth blend of charm and mockery. "Playing with your shiny toys again? I see you finally managed to coax something more than smoke and sparks from this contraption." Bartholomew, his face a mask of forced civility, met Jasper's gaze with a steely glint. "Jasper, always the gracious guest. Care to share your wisdom on how to polish a pig?" Jasper's smile widened, revealing a wolfish glint. "Perhaps," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "if you're willing to hear a tale of gears and ghosts." Intrigued, I edged closer, drawn into the vortex of their cryptic exchange. Jasper leaned in, his words washing over me like a wave of revelation. He spoke of a hidden lineage within the Thorne family, a branch that prioritized ethical innovation over ruthless ambition. He hinted at a betrayal, a family divided by the very forces that fueled their genius. Ilara's eyes, previously fixed on Bartholomew, flickered towards Jasper, a flicker of recognition sparking in their depths. This tale of shadows and secrets seemed to resonate with her own mission, casting a new light on her cryptic presence. As Jasper's words spun a web of intrigue, I felt the ground beneath my feet shift. The lines between hero and villain, progress and destruction, blurred into a dizzying haze. Was Bartholomew, the visionary industrialist, merely a pawn in a larger game? Was Ilara, the defiant warrior from the future, fighting a battle against ghosts of the past? Suddenly, the workshop door slammed open, shattering the fragile web of secrets. Silas Finch, Bartholomew's stoic right hand, entered with a grim expression. His eyes, devoid of their usual unwavering loyalty, darted towards Jasper, then settled on Ilara, a flicker of suspicion igniting within them. The air crackled with tension, the gears of the workshop falling silent as if mirroring the stillness that had descended upon the room. In that moment, I knew the game had changed. The whispers of shadows had become a chorus, and the future of innovation, progress, and perhaps even humanity itself hung precariously in the balance. Chapter 5. Whispers of Gears and Ghosts. The workshop, once a haven of invention, felt suffocating under the weight of Jasper Finch's words. Ilara's gaze, usually fiery and defiant, was now clouded with a flicker of recognition, a whisper of shadows from her own timeline. I, caught between the echoes of the past and the tremors of the future, felt the ground beneath me shift. Bartholomew, his face a mask of forced composure, dismissed Jasper with a curt nod. Silas, ever the stoic sentinel, remained at his side, his eyes darting between Ilara and myself. In that charged silence, I saw a flicker of suspicion in Silas's gaze, a seed of doubt sown by Jasper's cryptic tale. The gears above us ticked with an unsettling rhythm, mocking the uneasy truce that had descended. Elara, breaking the oppressive quiet, turned to me, her voice a low murmur. "He spoke of a betrayal," she said. "A fracture in the Thorne family. Does it ring true, Elias?" I hesitated, the weight of history pressing down on me. To share the truth, the chilling whispers of past betrayals and stolen futures meant jeopardizing everything. Bartholomew's trust, Elara's mission, and the fragile stability of the timeline itself. Yet silence felt like complicity, a betrayal of my own conscience. "There are rumors," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper, "of a rival, a genius ostracized for his methods, his vision, a man named Jasper Finch." The name sent a tremor through Elara. Her eyes narrowed, a spark of recognition igniting within their depths. "Jasper," she breathed, "he's the one. From my time, the one who defied Apex, who led the rebellion." My heart pounded against my ribs. Amelia's manipulation, the web of deceit she spun across time, it all began to make terrifying sense. Jasper, a beacon of resistance in Elara's future, was Bartholomew's rival in the past, and Amelia somehow had woven them together, exploiting their differences for her own gain. Suddenly, the workshop door burst open once more, shattering the fragile peace. A young woman, her face pale with fear, rushed in. "Mr. Thorne," she gasped, "the prototypes, they're gone. Someone broke in, stole the blueprints." Bartholomew's face contorted with rage. "Silas!" he roared, his eyes blazing. "Secure the grounds! Find whoever did this!" Silas, his jaw clenched tight, nodded silently and disappeared into the shadows. The air crackled with tension, suspicion thicker than the engine smoke that hung in the air. Elara, her eyes narrowed, turned to me, her voice a cold whisper. "This changes everything, Elias. Someone wants to rewrite the future, to rewrite history itself. We have to act." I knew she was right. The delicate balance of time was teetering, the whispers of rebellion echoing across centuries. We were no longer observers, no longer safe in the shadows. We were pawns in a game bigger than ourselves, and the fate of the future hung precariously in the balance. As the workshop erupted into a frenzy of activity, I knew our time for secrets and shadows was over. We had to choose a side, break free from the web of manipulation, and write our own chapter in the ever-shifting story of time. But where did our loyalties lie? What sacrifices would we have to make to set the timeline right? The answers, I feared, lay hidden in the whispers of gears and ghosts, waiting to be unearthed in the unfolding chapters of our fight. Chapter 6. Sparks of Betrayal. The gears above hummed with a malevolent rhythm, mirroring the turmoil in my gut. Bartholomew's words, laced with cold pragmatism, had ripped the veil from his ambition, revealing a chilling truth. He was willing to sacrifice anything, even his own family, to secure his legacy. Elara, her eyes blazing with fury, gripped my arm. "He meant to use you, Elias," she hissed, her voice taut with barely contained rage. "To steal your invention, your legacy, and erase you from history." The workshop, once a haven of invention, now felt like a cage, the air thick with betrayal. The blueprints of my life's work lay scattered on the floor, testaments to a trust shattered beyond repair. "But why?" I choked out, the question echoing in the cavernous space. "Why would you do this to your own son?" Bartholomew, his face a mask of cold resolve, stepped forward. "Sentimentality has no place in progress, Elias," he declared, his voice devoid of warmth. "Your invention is too powerful to remain in your hands. It belongs in mine, where it can be used to its full potential, to shape the future as I see fit." The future he envisioned, I realized with a sickening certainty, was one built on control, where innovation served as a tool for the elite, not the betterment of humanity. "You won't get away with this!" Elara snarled, her hand reaching for the concealed blade at her hip. But Bartholomew chuckled, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. "You underestimate me, Elara. You underestimate the reach of my influence, the lengths I'm willing to go to." With a snap of his fingers, the workshop doors burst open, revealing a dozen burly men, their faces grim and their eyes hard with loyalty. Silas, his stoic facade crumbling, stood at their head, his gaze flickering between me and Elara. We were trapped, outnumbered, and faced with a choice: surrender to Bartholomew's tyranny or fight for our freedom. for the future itself. Elara, ever the rebel, lunged for the nearest guard, her blade flashing in the dim light. I, fueled by a cocktail of rage and desperation, grabbed a discarded wrench, my only weapon against the tide of steel. The ensuing chaos was a whirlwind of clanging metal, grunts of exertion, and the sharp tang of fear. Elara, a whirlwind of fury, danced through the guards, her blade a blur of deadly grace. I, fueled by adrenaline and the knowledge that the future hung in the balance, fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal. But we were outnumbered, outmatched. The tide turned against us, the guards closing in, their faces contorted with grim determination. Just as I saw Elara surrounded, a deafening roar tore through the air. A behemoth of brass and steam, Bartholomew's latest invention, erupted through the workshop wall, its gears grinding and pistons pumping with brutal power. The impact sent us flying, the workshop groaning under the strain. Dazed and disoriented, I saw Elara scrambling to her feet, her eyes wide with shock. Bartholomew, perched atop the monstrosity, laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the ruined workshop. "Foolish children!" he boomed, his voice dripping with disdain. "You cannot defy the inevitable. The future is mine." But even as he basked in his apparent victory, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a hint of fear that betrayed his bravado. He knew, as I did, that the future was not set in stone, that even the most meticulously laid plans could crumble under the weight of unforeseen events. As Elara and I huddled together, wounded and defiant, I knew this was not the end. The fight for the future had just begun. We had been knocked down, but not broken. The gears of time, though momentarily thrown into disarray, would continue to turn, and we would be there, ready to set them right. Chapter 7. Echoes of a Broken Future. I stumbled back through the shimmering portal, the acrid tang of burnt circuits clinging to my throat. The familiar lab, once a haven of invention, felt alien, the silence thick with a chilling absence. My workbench, usually overflowing with tools and prototypes, lay bare, the instruments silent, the blueprints scattered like fallen leaves. A prickling dread crept up my spine, cold and clammy. It was too quiet, too still. Where was Silas? Where was Elara? Where was the low hum of the chronosphere, the reassuring heartbeat of my invention? My heart hammered against my ribs as I raced through the deserted corridors, the echo of my own footsteps mocking the emptiness. The air grew stale, the shadows lengthening, swallowing the workshop in an inky darkness. Panic choked me, acrid and bitter. Then, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. A figure, cloaked in darkness, emerged from behind a toppled stack of crates. My hand instinctively flew to the wrench clutched in my sweaty palm, my breath ragged and shallow. But the figure stepped into the light and relief washed over me like a tidal wave. It was Elara, her face streaked with soot, her eyes blazing with a mix of fear and defiance. "Elias!" she rasped, her voice hoarse. "You have to see this!" She led me through the lab, her footsteps echoing on the cold concrete floor. Each step brought me closer to the truth, each corner revealing a piece of the horrifying puzzle. The windows of the lab were boarded up, metal bars welded across the openings. Surveillance cameras, glinting, malevolent red eyes, were mounted on every wall. The chronosphere, my pride and joy, was encased in a thick metal cage, wires snaking from its gleaming surface like severed veins. And on the lab wall, scrawled in dripping crimson paint, was a single word: compliance. Elara's hand gripped mine, her fingers icy cold. "It's Silas Vance," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He's come from the future. He's using Amelia's technology, twisting it into a weapon. He's turned this place into a prison." My blood ran cold. Silas Vance, Elara's future nemesis, the embodiment of a dystopian world I had sworn to prevent, was here, in my time, wielding the power of a technology I had barely begun to understand. The weight of my invention, once a source of pride, now felt like a millstone around my neck. Had I unleashed this darkness into the world? Was my ambition paving the way for a future I had desperately fought against? I looked at Elara, her defiance refusing to be dimmed by the shadows closing in around us. We were two sparks of resistance, flickering in the encroaching darkness. But hope, I realized, was not a luxury I could afford to lose. "We have to fight him," I said, my voice rough with resolve. "We have to stop him before it's too late." Alara's lips curved into a determined smile. "Together," she said, her grip tightening on mine. The echo of our voices, bouncing off the cold walls of the lab, became a battle cry. We were outnumbered and outmatched, but we were not broken. We were the present, fighting for the future, and we wouldn't let the shadows win. The fight had just begun.
This is the end of part 1 of our story. If you like the story, please follow along with part 2 in the next video. A link to part 2 will be in the description section below. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.